What is happening, people? Today on the Pinnacle Real Estate Note Investing Podcast, we have honored guest Joe Kennedy with Flying Moose LLC. That's the name of his note investing business. It's a very unique name. We're going to explain how he got that name right here on this podcast. And also key things we're going to talk about are how did he got started in the note investing business. He's done quite a few deals. He got started in the business about 5 or 6 years ago. He's pretty well advanced note investor, mostly investing in all first mortgage or first lien mortgages. It's a great show. We're going to talk about much more basic stuff. So this is great if you're a new investor or just got started in the business. We're going to talk about some of the major pitfalls, things that you need to avoid to get started in this business. Some of the mistakes that he made when he got started out, and also we're going to develop into more advanced strategies. Why it's so important to have developing a yield calculator is crucial to this business, and the deal vetting process that Joe uses. Also some resources. I've also included these resources at the bottom of this video, so make sure to check those out. Some of the programs and books that Joe used to get started in this business. And if you'd like to contact Joe, he also has his own podcast and content that he produces to help new investors get started in the business. So I've also included a link to his content in this video as well. And without further ado, let's get right to it. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Hey, can't complain. Another beautiful day, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Any day I'm vertical is a beautiful day is what someone always used to tell me, right?
That's very true.
Hey. So, well, shoot, man. I got the recording started, and if you don't got anything else, let's just get started, man. I mean, you're the owner of Flying Moose. Is that the name of your note investing business you got there? I like the little font you got up in the top right corner. That's very fancy. But tell me a little bit about how you got that name. That's a unique name.
Well, that's a really good question. A lot of people ask me because it's a really unique, strange, weird name, however you want to call it. But it's something, at least I was looking for a name that was kind of memorable, it was kind of unique. And so the way this came about is I'm a private pilot. So I fly little single engine airplanes, bust holes in clouds and do all that fun stuff.
There you go.
And, so that's where the flying part comes from. And my wife, she's a petite little lady, and a lot of times when we're in the kitchen and I'm in her way, she says, "Get out of my way, you moose." So,
nice.
That flying moose.
So you fly out of the kitchen, right? You become the flying moose, right?
Yeah, when she gets mad at me, I fly out of the kitchen. That's
right,
sure.
Right. Petite little ladies can be vicious, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, good deal, man. That's awesome. So, well, how did you get started in the business? I know we talked last week a little bit, and I said, I think you've been in the business, you said a few years now, but
right.
Yeah. Right. How did you get started?
Well, it's kind of interesting. When I was starting, I didn't know much about notes. I mean, as a matter of fact, it was like, notes. What do you mean notes? What are those?
Right.
Type thing, which is a real common question to get, from people who aren't familiar. And, you kind of find out, well, that's what your mortgage is on your home. And you thought, well, that's what banks do, banks and mortgage companies and all these guys, they do those loans. And then you start to learn to find out, well, it's not just them, they actually sell some, other people originate their own. And so there's this whole market, secondary market, if you want, of notes that are related to real estate. And so I started doing some research and started doing some studying, and joined a mastermind group and got involved. And then I really liked it. I thought it was interesting and kind of a niche, if you would,
For sure.
in the market. And so I also like the fact that it was secured by real estate. I like the fact that, being the bank, you're not having to worry about the calls from the tenants of
Yes.
what's gone wrong in the house and all those
Yes.
kinds of things. And because I had had rentals in the past, and fortunately I had a property management company that would take those calls instead of me. But
It's the way to do it.
yeah, but still, I just liked it. It was kind of a lot cleaner and that kind of thing. So I kept studying and eventually took the step to buy some. And I started basically doing a joint venture to learn through the process with someone else that I thought, had a lot more experience. And so that's actually how I started, was joint venturing with some people, and then realized that, I think I can do this myself. And so I started buying notes on my own.
I got you. So yeah, let's talk about the first note you bought. So it was the first note you did a joint venture then, or?
Yes, actually the first note that I did was a joint venture. And I have to say, that's kind of one of the learnings for me, is that I jumped right in with some people that, I thought were good. I learned later they didn't have a lot more experience than I did.
Right.
And one of the joint ventures was okay. I made about a 6% return on the investment, so nothing great. But at least I didn't lose money.
Yeah, anytime you don't lose anything is good, right?
Right. And the other joint venture, that ended up in a lawsuit against the other partner because they didn't do anything, and the property just sat there. And it was supposed to be a 12 to 18 month joint venture, and close to 30 months later, finally succeeded in getting the joint venture partner just to sign over the properties to me so that I could then pursue, the workout on them.
Sure.
Which is what I did. So, I kind of, I guess in hindsight, I did learn.
Yeah.
Ventures, but after that, I started buying, and a lot of things that I had heard in my learning process was about non-performing notes and great returns with non-performing notes and those kinds of things. And what I found early on for me was that I was buying performing.
Okay.
And I would say in general, performers don't have probably the biggest return as non-performers, although those can go sideways as well. But it was a good way for me to get in and just get a steady cash flow from those performers, see how the whole thing's worked, and then kind of work my way into non-performers as well. So right now I have a portfolio of both performers and non-performers, but it's still largely performers. I'd say I'm probably about 80-20 performers.
Okay.
Right now.
Now, are these all first lien, or are some of them second lien, or what do you kind of?
Good question.
Yeah.
My box, if you will, buying is all first lien. I don't do any seconds.
Okay.
I only do first. I know there's a lot of people that do them, but they have nuances to them as well, which I'm not all that familiar with. I know you can buy them a lot cheaper. Seconds are a whole lot cheaper than buying the first. But it's all risk reward. You're taking a little greater risk with seconds, but you're paying a lot less. But the reward can be pretty good for some of those seconds, from what I understand. So
sure. If you I gotcha.
Conservative.
So I guess right now, I personally, what I do with my business with the note investing is I originate the notes. So I'm always talking to guys like you when I'm looking to sell, and
right.
Like I was just talking to somebody today, and I told them, I sold a note that I originated it, and probably within 2 months I had the note sold. It was seasoned for 2 months, made about 10,000 off of it. I mean, the property was I bought it for 20,000. I resold it for 40,000 with 4,000 down. 9% APR, yada yada. And like he was saying, he's like, that's crazy. Like I can't believe that person would buy that, And there's a lot of note buyers out there. There's, like you said, there's a lot of people who don't know what they're doing. I think the property was a good investment. I would have kept it, regardless. But I mean, what do you typically, I guess, look for? I mean, I know the market's like crazy hot right now, just like I was saying, within 2 months of originating a loan. I mean, these people buy it for plus 10K. I mean, I was shocked as well, but it was good for me. But
Oh yeah, smile all the way to the bank, man.
Yeah, but on the note, if I was a note buyer, I don't know. I'd be like, man, I feel like that would have been a little bit too quick. I would rather have something more seasoned, at least for a year normally, right? So
Yeah,
so I guess
normal investors, I would say normal, whatever that is,
right.
like to see a minimum of 6 months, and they would only pay more of a premium if there's 12 months worth of seasoning. That some people, if it doesn't have 12 months worth of seasoning, they won't even consider it to be a performing note.
Sure.
But like you said, I think right now the market's really hot. I mean, we're seeing notes going at incredibly high prices, which is nice for people who are holding notes now.
Sure.
So you just need to decide what you're going to do with your powder, because if you're going to try to buy another one, it's going to be expensive as well. So
exactly. But also buying houses is expensive as well. So, I mean, just even with the smaller deals, I just closed on a house today that, I mean, I paid 25,000 for it in Illinois, and it's a livable property. So, I mean, it was a good deal. But normally, I mean, I would probably buy it for, I could probably get it for 19. So,
Right.
just seeing that, I have to adjust that into the deal. But yeah, so that's pretty impressive. So what would your advice be for someone who is just getting started then?
I think, well, if it kind of depends on where you are, I guess, but if you're just really getting started, kind of back like I was, trying to figure out what are notes, how do they work, all those kinds of things. There's a lot of information out there that you can find, books, online, doing research to try to get yourself kind of up to speed of what's going on. And I think that's a great starting point, is just to make sure you kind of understand what it is. I mean, I had this book. It's called, I don't know if you can see it.
I'll pull it back just a little bit. Yeah, kind of there. You can see it. Yeah.
Who Needs the Bank is what it's called.
Okay.
And it's by Bob Zachmeier. Bob is a well-known real estate guy, note investor, and it's very basic. It starts you from the beginning and explains the whole thing through. And it's a great entry-level book, if you will. And then you start doing some more research and stuff online. Listen to podcasts like this. I mean,
sure.
These are great resources. And there's a number of people that have these podcasts. And then, you kind of have to decide, do you want to jump into some kind of a mastermind group, which is, there's a bunch of those out there. But, I have to also caution everybody, be careful, because A, they're very expensive.
Right.
And B, some of the gurus, use that as an opportunity to dump their poor stuff on their students.
Sure.
Is one thing you see or hear, or other kind of stories. So I'd say you'd need to do some research and talk to different people about the different gurus if you want to go down that road. Or there's people that, I know that they don't sell these masterminds, but they they do it more like a consulting thing where, they kind of do it like by the hour, and you go through stuff and they take you through and they help you actually purchase your first note. And it's not one from them. It's one that you find on the market from you or somebody else.
I gotcha.
Yeah. And that's a great learning process to do it that way. If you want to learn how to do it, but the key is, do you want to be an active or a passive note investor?
So with passive, I mean, you'd be doing, basically all performing. Is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah, typically, the passive note investor is the guy that wants what they call mailbox money.
Right.
People who just want a decent return on their investment, and they're opting for this and instead of the stock market or something else, that they just buy it and it just sends them a check every month. And that's one way to do it. And there's a lot of people that do that. They like that steady income at a decent interest rate, much better than what they get with their money sitting in the bank. That's for sure.
Sure.
So that's one avenue that a lot of people go to, and there's a lot of people that are like that I sell notes to. That's what they want. They want a performing note. And they want to just be able to set it up and see the deposit every month. And then there's other people, like you and like me, that tend to be more active, that, buy and sell them because, you can make money not only on the payment, but if you buy it at a good price, you can turn around and sell it just like the one you created, and you make money on the other end too. So,
right.
Kind of depends on what kind of investor you want to be.
I gotcha. Well,
Yeah.
you mentioned that you joined, to go back to the mastermind. You mentioned you joined a mastermind when you first started. Is that still around? Is that something you would recommend as a group, or is that fizzled out?
The one I joined kind of has fizzled out, if you will.
I gotcha.
And I wouldn't really recommend that one.
I gotcha.
There are some other ones I would recommend that I think are really good with a lot of resources. I don't know if you've heard of Fred and Tracy Z. They're a husband and wife group that does note investing.
Okay.
And they provide a tremendous amount of information, and it's more of a subscription type thing, and you get access to it, as opposed to some of these others where, some of them, they want you to, come plop down 15 grand.
Oh, for sure.
You jump right in and not that they're bad. I mean, there are some of them that are very expensive, but are very good. But,
yeah.
If you're just starting out,
you could buy a note.
I struggle dropping 15 grand.
Yeah, so I could go buy a note or close to it for 15 grand, right? So
yeah, absolutely, you sure can. So that's what that's what I would suggest. You do a bunch of research and studying and reading up on the stuff to begin with, and then you can contact some of these well-known people, and some of them will do, like I said, the subscription, or some of them will do it like on a consulting basis with you, to kind of help walk you through it. And so,
sure. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about your business. Like you said, you kind of work the notes a little bit more, a little bit less mailbox money. But do you work with any private investors at all? Like if someone's interested in, or a JV deal, if someone's interested in partnering with you, I mean, can they reach out to you and possibly do a deal with you? Or
yeah, they can. It kind of depends on where we are in that given day as far as the availability of deals, but
right.
I'm open to that. I'm also open to, I don't do a mastermind, but if somebody wants some help kind of walking them through the process and kind of do it more on a consulting basis, I'm happy to do that as well.
I gotcha.
So it's just kind of what does the person want or need, and kind of work with them. Everybody's different. everybody has different, backgrounds and experiences and different expectations. And so,
Sure.
you know, um,
It's always got to be a good fit, right?
oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know?
And I think that's key, because if it's not a good fit, it's a waste of everybody's time.
Right. Well, I mean, like when you go to buy a note, I mean, where are you looking at? You looking at paper stack? I mean, you going online, or are you just going to Facebook? They got a lot of Facebook groups where you can buy notes, or do you just kind of look everywhere?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I have bought notes off of PaperStack.
Okay.
I think it's a great platform. They do a really good job. And if you're looking for your first note, that's not a bad place to look. Again, like you said, what I'm seeing, I think the market's really hot right now, and things tend to be kind of expensive there on PaperStack.
Okay.
But I don't think it's just PaperStack. I think it's everywhere. But it's one of the things you learn as you get into this business is that networking is a huge, important part of it, because I buy notes from other note investors. It kind of is a process where you have the like Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or whatever sell these just like $1 billion worth of notes, right?
Right.
And then these huge funds buy those parts of them, and then those funds kind of pick what they want, and they turn around and sell stuff down to some of the, I would say, big note investors. And then I know several of those guys, and so whenever they have something, or I'm in the market to buy some stuff, I reach out to them, and they'd say, yeah, we've got this here, take a look, see if there's anything you want. So it's kind of this trickle down effect, to get down to where I am, if you will.
Right.
On the totem pole. And so that's a really good resource for me, as well as gives me the ability to buy them at, more competitive rates, I would say, than on the public platforms like PaperStack or.
Sure. Well, it's like you said, it's a very fragmented business, it's not like there's, Zillow where you just, you go find every single house listed in the United States, right? It's not like there's just one place, I've sold notes from, just doing a Google search looking for note buyers, or at Facebook, or, PaperStack as well. So yeah, I mean, it's very, very fragmented, and everyone always gives you different opinions on what it's worth. One guy will come in at, it's worth 10,000. Another guy will come in and say it's worth 25, or come back a year from now, or what have you. It's unbelievable how much different variables people have when buying,
Oh, I know. I've seen there's some sellers that want 100% of UPB. And for those people that don't know what that is, that's the unpaid principal balance. In other words, that's how much the borrower owes on that note. So if they say they owe $50,000, some people want to sell that note for $50,000. But as you go through this process and learn more, you realize that there's a time value of money that, you're going to pay $50,000, but it's going to take you now 20 years to get that back. Of course, you're going to get plus some interest. So you have to calculate what your yield is going to be. And that's another part of the learning process. You need to develop a decent calculator and learn how to calculate what your yield is. But yeah, some people, they want 100% of the value, the par value, or the UPB. And I've actually heard some people tell me that they have said, okay, well, wait, this person is buying, has got this note. The borrower is paying $500 a month. So that's $6,000 a year, and it's good for 20 years. So that's $120,000. So they just want you to give them $120,000.
Which is ridiculous. I mean,
You would never pay that.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I'd be a millionaire by now if people were buying my notes
Yeah, you
like
and me
that.
both.
You know, I'd be like, hey,
I've got some, I'll sell you, baby.
right. That's unbelievable. But so yeah, I mean, so let's talk about the deal vetting process. I mean, I guess kind of what you're looking at. Um, obviously, like my process for creating a note is, you gotta own the property free and clear. Have a private lender invest in it with you. Then I can go out and I can originate that note. I got to vet the buyer. So, I use a mortgage loan originator to vet that buyer to keep it Dodd-Frank compliant. A lot of people don't have that mortgage loan originator. I'm almost certain that there's notes out there that people are not Dodd-Frank compliant.
Sure.
They're trying to sell in all these open. So how do you go through this process of vetting not just the value of the note, but making sure they're compliant with Dodd-Frank, across all these lines? Because there's a lot of paperwork. I mean, when I'm selling a land contract, I got, 30 pages of paperwork, 50 pages of paperwork, and you can't trust me as a seller, if we've never done business before. I can't just come to you and say, oh yeah, this is all good, this is all compliant. I mean, how do you vet that?
That's part of the learning process that you need to go through, because you need to know, what questions to ask. If it's a owner originated one like yours, you definitely want an RMLO, or a registered mortgage loan officer,
Right.
to have gone through that note and verified that effectively the borrower has the capability to pay,
Sure.
and that you're not doing anything that is illegal or that kind of stuff, or anything that would be considered predatory as the lender. So they go through and they do all this, and then they provide you with a certificate, as well as a bunch of documentation that basically supports and justifies why that lender is approved for that particular loan. When I'm buying a owner originated note, that's one of the things I'm going to look at is, does that exist? I'll ask the question. Some people will say, no. Because what I see is there's a lot of people that will sell a house to a family member or a friend or whatever, and they barely put the paperwork together for the deal. And then of course, it's a friend or a family member, so the interest rate is something like, I don't know, okay, 2%. And it makes it, right there's two strikes against you. One, the interest rate is so low that it's going to make it very difficult for you to buy that at a price they're willing to accept, because
Right.
You're going to have to discount it to get a decent return. And the fact that it hasn't been, underwritten by the RMLO, has problems with it. So to be honest, unless there was something that I just really saw that sparked my eye, or unless the price was really cheap, I would probably walk away from that one.
Right. Unless it was originated with an RMLO.
Right.
Is what you're saying. I got you.
Yeah, exactly.
I got you.
It's just, yeah, you don't want to, it's just a mess you don't want to jump into. And so, there's
Sure.
other notes out there. The thing somebody told me once is, when you're out looking for notes, don't be afraid to say no.
Right. Well, it's with anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's a bunch of them that have a lot of hair on them. I mean, tax liens, HOA liens, all bankruptcies, you name it. There's a lot of stuff that you need to really kind of check out. I kind of remember before I got into notes and I was buying a house, you'd go to the closing, and there was so many documents to sign. You signed everything, seemed like forever, just stacks of documents.
Sure.
And I kept thinking, what in the world are they doing? This is a crazy, all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff, man. And now I understand.
Now it makes sense, right?
You got to protect yourself, and that's what they're doing. And there's a lot of stuff out there. I mean, Dodd-Frank, you don't do things right, and Dodd-Frank can get you into trouble. And
Yeah.
so there's, a whole lot of things that you have to do to make sure that you're compliant, and that, you're not being a predatory lender, if you will.
Sure.
Which is, from my perspective, that's not what I ever want to do. And
no,
my philosophy is, for people who have missed payments or whatever, I really want to try to work with them, to try to keep them in the house. And so we do forbearance agreements, temporary payment plans, all kinds of things to see if we can work it out so that, the people can keep their house.
Sure. Yeah, it's always got to be, within my experience, it's always got to be a win-win.
That's what this little picture here.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's that?
This little picture here in the corner. That's what we try.
The win-win. Oh yeah, the guy's saving his house. Yeah, it's always got to be a win-win. I mean, I'd rather lose $100 a month in payments, just to make sure that the buyer can actually own the house and keep the house in good condition, than kill them on the payments and try to be greedy and get that extra money.
Yeah, right.
But so what's your outlook for the market? Just because I guess things are kind of a lot of stuff going on right now. We had our stimulus packages and coronavirus and all these different things, and housing market is rising, as we talked about. Note market is crazy wild. A lot of people are just sitting back saying, like, I'm not going to buy anything, which is could honestly be a smart decision. What's your outlook for the market? Do you think it's going to crash, and people who are being smart and sitting back right now are going to clean up, or what do you think is going on?
Them being out. Yeah. Well, first I'll tell you, hey, this is not financial advice.
Sure, always.
It's just my opinion.
Right.
And that $10 will get you a cup of coffee.
Hey, that's a good cup of coffee. That's like where I buy coffee. That's like 10 cups of coffee, right? $10. I like the cheap stuff, man.
I hear you. I actually, I thought we were going to see a crash earlier because of COVID. I was expecting a crash earlier this year. I was expecting one in 1Q, but because of the government support and because of the evictions on foreclosures, I mean, the moratorium on foreclosures and evictions, that didn't really happen. I've attended a recent conference, and there's some of the really smart guys are doing, their predictions of what they think's coming, et cetera. And what I've heard is they're now looking at, the correction or the crash to come probably in 1Q of next year. And that's when they think we're going to see a whole lot more of the foreclosures coming in and basically kind of the correction to occur. So what am I doing? Well, I'm selling some of my performers because it's a good time to sell.
Sure.
Can get a premium for them. And
why not?
Yeah. And I'm sitting on the fence and watching, to see, I'm still looking if there's some opportunities that come open, or whatever, some good deals. I'm receptive to those for sure. But I'm not interested in paying, premium prices for stuff right now.
Sure.
I'm gonna kind of sit on the fence and just gauge, see what's going on, what we think is going to happen.
Sure. Just like was Warren Buffett say, when others are greedy, be fearful. When everyone is fearful, be greedy, right? So
exactly.
So, yeah. No, you gotta play it smart. That's the best way to do it. So
right.
Well, I guess we'll see and wait and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any kind of different strategy?
I mean, to be honest with you, I could be more aggressive. I could go out and probably buy more houses. Whereas I'm still, keeping enough cash reserves is kind of what I do,
Right.
'Cause with the note origination, even during COVID, no one's ever missed a payment. So,
Right.
and these are normally lower income properties. I mean, I don't know what type of notes you're buying. Some people buy like the higher price notes, but the ones I do are lower price blue collar people, in smaller towns in like Indiana, Illinois, Midwest area. And, it's just like you said, working with the people. Can I, hold off payments on this house for 3 months and, like not get paid for 3 months and still, be okay? Because sometimes I use, private lenders or,
Right.
personal loans, whatever. But, just making sure you have that exit strategy, because I got to keep my private lenders safe too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You
I
have an
can't
obligation to them.
I can't just go all in and say,
Right.
yeah, you got 50,000, give me all 50. No, like I'm going to tell you, no, we're just going to do, this 25 and we're going to keep it safe. Right. So,
Right.
so yeah, I think I'm just kind of pumping the brakes just a little bit to kind of see what goes on. And, if houses go down, 50%, it's going to be great, especially if I have that cash reserves instead of buying high right now. And then 6 months from now, I'll look at like kicking myself like, man, I could have cleaned up, because it
Yeah.
is a long process. Even though I sell notes, I try to sell my notes within a year, typically hold one, keep one, or sell one. It's still, you have to go into the origination process looking at it that I'm going to hold this for 10 years. Typically I do my notes for 10 years. So you got to go in there saying, yeah, I want this to be mine for the next 10 years if I have to, if I can't sell it. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I'm doing, and I think that's pretty much what's most smart investors are doing, kind of like yourself. Just sit back and see what happens. If it doesn't happen, great, but it's got to happen sometime, right?
Yeah. I would think so. I mean, there's just a lot of data out there showing that, there's something that's kind of on the horizon. How bad or exactly when is the big question mark.
Sure.
But I'm like you. I mean, mine are, my ballpark is between 50 and 150.
Right.
Unpaid balance is kind of in that area. And so, I don't really go for the big, $500,000 or $1 million houses.
No, that's scary. Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah. And what I hear people say is that, when you get up there, there's a lot of those people, they hire attorneys to figure out ways to not pay for even longer, filing bankruptcies and
Sure.
all kinds of stuff, which makes it even more difficult, so yeah, I kind of stick in that ballpark and it seems to work out fine. And, you just work with people,
Right.
You'd be open and try to communicate and work with them.
Yeah, that's something that I don't know, on so much your side of the business, buying notes, but for me, for the note origination side, it's, people like, we sit here and we talk a lot about, all the different contracts, kind of like when you were saying buying the house, you got this big stack of papers and all that stuff. But really when it comes down to it, I mean, it's working with people. I mean, you have to be, at least for the note originator, you have to be like, anyone is going to buy that house. Anybody wants to buy that house, but you have to be almost like the big parent to sit there and say, here's what you can actually afford, kind of like what we were talking about with the mortgage loan originator. And is this going to be a good fit for you? I mean, are you going to be able to fix this house up? Are you going to be able to, hold it for the long term, and that's just knowing people and working with people. And, so it's kind of like you're the bank, qualifying them. So that's a big element of it.
Plus, you have the ability to provide the financing for a lot of people that may not be able to get a traditional loan from a bank.
For sure. Yeah.
So you have the ability to give them this access to a house that they couldn't get any other way. And
exactly.
So you're doing quite a big deal for them. That they want to own their own home. And so that's, I've done a couple of origination myself, and, it makes you feel good because, depending on the person, you can you can design it to make it work for them,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
so that's what's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
Cool.
Well, I think that's all the time we got for today, unless you got
All right.
any other crazy stories you got for us. But
Yeah, I
man,
mean,
it was
one of the things, at least on my side of it, is due diligence.
sure.
That's a huge process, and I guess one of my favorite stories is that um, I had a note seller saying, "Hey Joe, here's this note I want to sell you. Here's a house in Tennessee, in Memphis. Here's all the details." And so it looked good, man. The numbers worked and all that kind of stuff. And you can go to Google and see the house, and you can go to Zillow and the estimates and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things I learned early, though, is you always need boots on the ground. You need to have somebody go by and take pictures of it and all that kind of stuff. And so I had called, had a realtor contact there, and they were going to go do a like a broker price opinion and take pictures and all that kind of stuff. And so next day, my phone rings and it's a voicemail. I missed it, and it was a voicemail, and it was a realtor saying, "Joe, whatever you do, don't close the deal. Don't close the deal." I'm going, well, that's strange. She said, "I'm going to be back in the office in 30 minutes. Call me." So called her back in 30 minutes. She goes, "Joe, there's no house there. It's a vacant lot."
No way.
Yeah, it was a vacant lot. But if you went to Zillow or you went to Google, it showed the house that used to be there.
Oh my goodness.
And
That's so scary.
yeah. So
Holy smokes.
you have to do your due diligence. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the best $100 I ever spent.
Right though, right?
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody who she would buy, second lien notes, and I guess she would buy them on reels, so she'd buy like 10 at a time or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
she was going through the process, and she already made her money on the first, 6 or 7, but the last 3, and it was the same thing. She called the borrower, and she's like, "When are you going to pay this house?" And he's like, "There's no house there." And she went by, and it was a tornado tore the house down. But on Google, it looked great. It looked like she had value. It looked like she had all that stuff. But so kind of same thing. It's crazy, You look at the satellite picture, you're like, "Oh yeah, this is here," and then it's gone. But that's unbelievable. It's sad that someone would want to do that, but it teaches you to, you gotta keep you got to do your due diligence, like you said,
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the things you learn. That's very important before you pull the trigger. So
Exactly. Well,
cool.
it was an honor as well as a pleasure, and
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
no problem. I appreciate you coming on. So I'll get this going, and best of luck to you. And maybe
Thank you.
we'll end up doing a deal together one time, or maybe you'll end up buying one of my notes.
I look forward to it.
I'll sell you anything at 100%. Okay.
Hey, if you don't get me, just leave a message.
Will do. I appreciate it,
man.
Joe.
Take
Have a good
care.
one.
See you.